The Mirage-5F screams its way into the French tech tree in War Thunder. Let's take a look at this supersonic strike fighter. The origins of the Mirage 5 can be traced back to a request from the Israeli Air Force for a new Mirage variant with better range, enhanced ground attack capability, and more simplistic avionics better suited to the Middle East climate. The French engineers got to work and proposed the Mirage 5, which on paper met all of the Israeli requirements, and the IAF immediately placed an order for 50 planes before any metal was even cut. Well, due to some diplomatic issues, France found themselves with an arms embargo against Israel right as the planes were ready to be delivered. The planes originally intended for Israel were put into service with the French Air Force as the Mirage-5F. Now, there are conflicting stories and some drama about Israel acquiring the planes for the Mirage-5, and some say unassembled planes in crates and all that, which led to the production of the Nesher as a domestic version. But we're focusing on the name brand Mirage 5 at the moment. The plane ended up being used by over a dozen countries and still flies to this day for a few export customers. In French service, the plane served a variety of ground attack and related functions, including reconnaissance roles, and carried a pretty wide assortment of ordnance. One noteworthy oddity are the external fuel tanks. The Mirage 5 was equipped with the RPK-10 unit under its wings. This was an innovative combination of an external fuel tank and a multiple ejector rack for its weapons. In practice, the usual loadout was to carry 4 bombs on the RPK, along with a moderate fuel load. Yes, they stuck bombs hanging off the drop tanks. Gotta put them somewhere, I guess. In any case, the Mirage 5 was used as the basis for a variety of upgrade programs and derivative fighters. The IAI Nesher, Kafir, and the Atlas Cheetah can all trace their lineage directly back to this plane. In War Thunder, the Mirage 5 is at the end of the strike fighter line in the French aviation tree, and currently sits at BR 10.3. The history of the Mirage 5 puts it in a bit of an odd situation. It has no radar, but it does have a full ballistics computer for its air-to-ground weapons. The loadouts it gets are pretty comprehensive, with combinations of missiles, bombs, and rocket pods. A notable detail here, the Mirage 5 can carry bombs of different weights, so you need to be mindful of that when you're selecting the correct secondary weapon before a bombing run. A major shortcoming of this plane is that it doesn't have any countermeasures. Oof. For air-to-air weapons, you get the basic AIM-9B to start. It won't be especially useful to the Mirage 5, even while you're grinding upgrades, but it's better than nothing. Once you unlock the R550 Magic 1, you get some legitimate air-to-air combat potential. This is an excellent weapon, and some players consider it the best dogfight missile in the game right now. The only option for an air-to-ground missile is the AS-30 Nord. This is a manually guided weapon, and some players use it more as an unguided rocket that actually flies straight, but it can be steered into targets. It has good range and a huge warhead, so it'll demolish anything that you can hit with it. The flight performance of the Mirage 5 is quite good. Its heritage from the Mirage 3 carries over and gives it excellent maneuverability, decent engine power, good rate of climb, and an acceptable top-end speed. Being a pure delta, the plane does bleed energy in sustained maneuvers, but it pulls hard and can make a credible account of itself in a dogfight. Just keep in mind that, as always, if you have a few thousand kilograms of bombs hanging off your wings, it's going to cripple your flight performance. There's a tangible difference in how the plane handles when it's loaded up with bombs, compared to when the wings are empty or you just have a couple of magics. Something to be aware of: right now, there's no keybind to dump the drop tanks. So if you take the bomb load that gets the RPK tank, you're stuck with it, even after you drop your bombs, and it will have an impact on your overall flight performance. Taking the Mirage 5 out into air battles gives you some flexible multi-role mission options. The plane gets a runway spawn, so unfortunately you're going to be chasing the air spawn strike fighters to targets when you fly out with a bomb load. If you take a heavy bomb load, it'll also make you a vulnerable target for interception due to how badly the bombs impact your flight performance. When you do get to the ground targets though, the Mirage-5 can lay out some serious punishment. You also have the option of taking the plane out in a purely air combat role, and once you get the R-550 missiles unlocked, the plane becomes a pretty credible dogfighter, just one without any radar. My preferred loadout and profile, once spaded, was to take the two Magics and the AS-30 Nord on the center line. Flying out as close air support, okay, so the Mirage-5 has a pretty heavy weapon load and the ballistics computer and everything, but without countermeasures, you're flying into all kinds of advanced player-controlled air defense vehicles, and the Mirage-5 has a pretty low survivability under those conditions. At least half of the time I got the Mirage-5 in ground battles, I got shot down by SPAA before I got anywhere near the battlefield. The lack of a radar and the lack of spotting on air targets and ground RB can also make you vulnerable to interception, so you have to keep on the lookout constantly. Luckily, the Mirage-5 doesn't need a lot of spawn points to get into, so you'll have lots of opportunities to use it. Visually, the Mirage-5F looks a lot like its predecessors, the Mirage 3 line. I've always liked the look of these planes, but I'll be honest that I don't like the RPK tanks. You don't get any custom skins or anything, not yet anyway, so you have to rely on decals if you want to spice up your plane a little bit. Landing this one is basically the same deal as other Delta Wing jets. No landing flaps, but good air brakes. There will often be a little bit of a tendency to pitch up just before touchdown, but don't worry about it, you'll be fine. Just practice once or twice in a test flight after you unlock the plane, and you shouldn't have much trouble. Flying inside the cockpit gives excellent forward and side and vertical visibility, but you don't get any kind of heads-up display, and no visible radar warning receiver. For a plane at the top tiers, it can be a bit of a handicap, and I was a little let down. Everything else was okay though. To close out on the Mirage-5F, this plane has great multi-role weapon loadouts and gives a high degree of flexibility in what kind of missions you can fly. It has the outstanding R-550 dogfight missile and the heavy-hitting AS-30 ground attack missile. And it's quite maneuverable, with great flight performance after you dump the bombs. Also, it doesn't take many spawn points to fly it out into ground battles. However, no radar, no countermeasures, and you can't ditch the RPK tanks after dropping your bombs. The final verdict on the Mirage-5F is that this plane adds some great variety to the French air tree, letting you take a fast Mirage as a ground pounder. The Jaguar is still better for close air support and pure ground attack, but the Mirage is a much better dogfighter. Overall, it's a very good plane. As always, thanks for watching.